I'll use this. Is that too loud? It sounds kind of loud to me. Is it okay for everybody? Okay. I know I see some familiar faces, so I know some of the people here have seen this presentation before. I'll go through that and we'll leave lots of time for questions and answers, and we'll go from there. So basically what I want to do is talk about the agreement, the way it was actually signed. So now we have the finalized agreement. Everybody here should have received a ballot in the mail to vote. If you didn't, or if you misplaced it, just ask any of our staff members. They'll get you another one. What we're asking everybody to do is, regardless of which way you want to vote, please vote, and please get all your neighbors to vote so that we don't have to extend the voting over and over and over, because we need to get a definitive answer, which in this case means we either need to get a majority of votes to approve it or a majority of votes to kill it. And so either way, we need to have a majority of votes from the entire community on one side or the other in order to have a definitive answer. So what's really important is that everybody vote. Obviously vote however you feel that you should vote, but just if we can get all the votes in, we can avoid extending things and going through that again. Basically, the entire agreement, the entire contract, the way it stands for homeowner approval, is on the website. So anybody who, if you want to look at it and see exactly what it says, it's there. We did not send it out to everybody because this is the entire agreement. So we didn't really want us to send one of these to every mailbox in Somerset. So we sent out a summary, but the entire thing is online for anybody who wants to go see it. If you log in to mysomerset.com, once you get into the member section, after you do your login to the SOA part, there's a drop-down menu on the right-hand side. There's also a sentence across the home page that says, if you want to get information, something to the effect of, click here for more information on this deal. And if you click that, it'll take you there. You'll see all kinds of information, questions and answers, the contracts themselves, the original letter of agreement. It's all online. The contract itself is actually composed of three parts. Okay, there's a purchase agreement, a lease agreement, and a water facility agreement. They're all interrelated. The lease agreement, in fact, is an exhibit to the purchase agreement, and the water facilities agreement runs concurrently with the lease. But I'll talk about each of those three. Give me the next slide. This, again, just a reminder of what we're talking about. The yellow boundary is Somerset, all the way around. Here's Sierra Canyon down here. We're right up there. Here's the main entrance from the front where you come in and come down into the valley. Everything that's red is what's owned by the country club right now. That's the way it is. The part that's not really shown is that there's also a pipeline that runs from the river down here, and it runs up through and comes up to our pond that's right out there, the Hole 9 pond, for Canyon 9. The association does not own that pond. Okay, that pond is actually owned by the country club. The reason that's important is that's the only place where water from the Truckee River can be brought. And we'll talk about water rights later. There are certain water rights that we're proposing to buy from the country club, but the association has its own water rights for Canyon 9. The problem is the only ones we can capture are from the river. And that requires, there's a pump house down there, there's an 11,500 foot pipeline, there's a pump house, that kind of metal building you see just out here is basically, that's what's inside of the pumps that help bring water up from the Truckee River. It dumps it into that pond right here. We don't own any of that. We don't own the pond, we don't own the pipeline, we don't own the pumps, we don't own any of it right now. Okay. But that's critical because the only way you can water, the way the system is designed, the only way you can their river water rights, because they've got both river and groundwater rights, their river water rights work the same way. You got to pump it up from the river. That's why there's only one pipeline and stuff, because it was, I guess the developer decided it didn't make any sense to build duplicate pipelines following each other and give one to the association and one to the country club. But anyway, they pump water up from the river into the same pond, and then they pump it from this pond over to another pond on the big golf course, and they suck it out from there to water the big golf course. But the point is, from this pond down to the Truckee River is infrastructure that we have to share. Except that they own it, we don't own any of it. That's just the way the developer decided to title it when he built it, I suppose. You could have just as easily given it to the association, but he chose to do it the way he chose to do it. So anyway, next slide. Here's the agreement. The purchase agreement part is exactly what it says. That's the part that specifies what we're buying, what we're paying, and those terms. For the most part, at closing, assuming this deal is approved by homeowners and we go ahead and finish the deal, at closing, most of the purchase agreement is basically over. There are a few pieces that survive. For example, we get a 4-year warranty on everything we're buying. So for the first 4 years, anything goes wrong, Country Club has to pay to fix it, no matter what it is. That survives, but for the most part, that part of the agreement is over once the deal is closed. The lease is really the part of the deal that survives. The lease, what we're doing is, as soon as we buy it, as part of the closing, simultaneously, as soon as we buy it, we're proposing to lease it back to the Country Club. And we'll talk about that in a lot more depth as to why we're doing it that way. But the lease agreement, that's what it's about, and then a big part of that is it goes into great detail on who's responsible for what in terms of maintenance, repairs, and so forth. So that's what you want to look at to understand those things. And the water facility agreement is there because of exactly what I was just talking about, because there is common infrastructure that both sides have to share in order to irrigate the golf course. And with the water facilities agreement done, it basically lays out that for anything that has to do with moving water around, whether it's for our Canyon 9 or for the big golf course, this agreement specifies who's responsible for what, who has to pay for what, and how that works. So that's what the three main parts of the deal are. Like I said, at closing, most of this goes away. These two run concurrently. The water agreement only exists as long as the lease is in operation. If the lease ceases to be in operation, either through default, bankruptcy, whatever, then obviously there's no lease. Everything reverts back to the association. There's no need for the water facilities because it's only us that's going to be operating anything. So this basically dies when that dies. And that's the way the deal is set up right now. Next slide. Okay. So what is it we're trying to buy? And we'll talk about also why we're trying to buy this. Okay. What's the subject of this agreement is basically 224 acres of land. And that's the land that the golf course happens to be on right now. And I say it that way because we are making no commitment to operate a golf course. Okay, we are interested in owning the land, all the stuff that you saw in red, with the exception of the building lot for the clubhouse that the country club's keeping. And the reason we're interested in owning that is so that homeowners can make a decision about what happens to it, and it doesn't go back to the developer or to an outside third party. In addition, there's about 411 acre-feet of water rights. And on top of that, there's 100 acre-feet of supplemental water rights. The way that works, the total amount of water we're entitled to in any given year is still the 411 acre-feet. What the supplemental rights do is basically say, if we're not allowed to pull the water out of the Truckee River, as right now, okay, we're allowed to pump up to an extra 100 acre-feet out of the wells in order to get up to 411. Right now, the way it works is, well, what we're talking about buying, roughly 72% of the water rights that are owned by the golf course are in fact underground water. So then there's a little bit from spring, and then there's, roughly 25% of it is river water. The 100 supplemental feet is more than enough to make up for all the river water under those permits. In addition, the water distribution facilities, which is what I was talking about, the pump houses, the pipes, especially from the Truckee River here, that's really the critical part for us. And then, as part of this deal, the big maintenance building that you see down on, it's up there next to the driving range as you go down the parkway. That big maintenance building and the grounds of that building are also part of this deal. So that's all that we're proposing to buy. Okay? To me, what's even more important about it, in addition to the property, is the developer has agreed to terminate his reversion rights. Okay, the way this property is set up right now is it basically says, as long as it's operated as a golf course, the country club owns it, and they truly own it. I know there have been some rumors spread around that they don't actually own the land, or only have use of it. That's actually not true. They are the owner. They are free to sell it to anybody they want. But that person needs to either operate a golf course or it's going to go back to the developer. What the deal is right now, what's written into the deeds on the land is, if at any time it is not operated as a golf course for 12 consecutive months, all the property reverts back to the developer. Okay? So, what does that mean? Well, that means that either the current country club is going to operate a golf course, they're going to sell it to somebody who wants to operate a golf course and thinks they can operate a golf course in the long term, or it ultimately goes back to the developer, which is exactly what happened in Northgate. They had the same kind of thing, that a family land trust or something donated the land to the city for the purpose of having a golf course. The city agreed to build a golf course and all that. But there was a reversionary right under it that if the city stopped operating the golf course, it went back to the original owners. Okay? And then that's what caused all the stuff that we went through a couple of years ago, where ultimately the city and the county and some of the owners right there set up a special taxing district to buy that land to keep it from being developed into little houses and stuff. That's because there was a reversion right. And as soon as, once the city stopped, once they closed down the golf course, it went back to the family that donated the land in the first place. And that's exactly what we have here under this golf course. As a matter of interest to people, we actually have that on this clubhouse as well as the Canyon 9, because we were in the association, all of us here who are homeowners. Unfortunately, when the developer turned over this property to the association, he turned it over with debt on it. So basically, until the debt is paid off, there's a reversion right on this building and on Canyon 9. As soon as we pay off that debt, then that goes away. But that's the reality of this situation. But anyway, this is really critical, because it means that if we do this deal, the land, the water, the facilities that we are buying will never leave Somerset's control. Okay? And that's huge. That's huge to be able to say that there are 224 acres that run throughout the community that right now we don't have any say over what happens to them. They're not bound by our CCNRs or rules or anything else.
So who is the developer?
Blake Smith.
Who?
Blake Smith, Somerset Development Company.
Yeah.
Okay, but at this point he has signed the agreement, so he has agreed to terminate if this deal closes. Okay, what are some of the other key points of the purchase agreement? Like I said, there's a 4-year warranty. We asked for this, and we negotiated it to eliminate the risk to the association in case there's things that, there's lots of things during inspections you really can't find, even if you inspect it. there's certain things like some of the well pumps, they're either working or they're not working. Stuff like that, just to make sure if there's anything we miss. We've got a 4-year warranty. The country club will be responsible for fixing everything to good operating condition at 100% of their cost. It won't cost us anything during the first 4 years. Now, I did mention that there's a piece of land that the country club is keeping. Okay, and that is, if you've been up there, where the parking lot is now, and where the little restaurant is, and the pro shop, that block right there, they are keeping that lot. That was always intended to be the building site for the country club's clubhouse. And we talked about, we looked at a lot of different things about that. We looked at buying that from them. The bottom line was, there were 2 issues. One is getting them to agree. And the second one is being able to do it in a way that wouldn't inadvertently tie the association into having responsibility or liability for their clubhouse if they build it, things like that. So ultimately we decided the cleanest way to do this, and the way we could do it in a way that everybody agreed, is to basically just let them keep that way. If they build a clubhouse, it is their responsibility. We have nothing to do with it. We don't have to contribute anything to it. We don't have to participate in any way. So they are keeping that, but that does, it's about 4.5 acres. And so, it is obviously right surrounded by association property. So what we did do is negotiate a right of first refusal. And it's a typical right of first refusal except for one thing. And that is, if they try to sell that property in the first 5 years, we are actually allowed to buy it 50% of whatever offer they get. And we did that on purpose to try to create a substantial incentive for them not to take money around. Okay, we want them to operate a country club. And we'll talk about that a little bit, why that is a little bit more later, but the basic idea is that means they've got to pay for all the maintenance and keeping it green and doing all that kind of good stuff, which means Somerset will look exactly like it looks now, which is what we're after. If they try to sell after the first 5 years, then we still have the right of first refusal, but it's at whatever price somebody else in an arm's length transaction is offered. We don't have to buy it, we just have the right to buy it if we want to. I'm assuming everybody's aware of the certain amenities that all association members are eligible for, using the restaurant, a couple rounds of golf, stuff like that. We're trying to get amenities out of this deal is not a primary motivation. But since they're there and members do use them, we had in 2013, there was something like 4,900 and some uses of the amenities by Somerset residents who are not members of the country club. So it actually, and interestingly enough, the most frequently used amenities were the restaurant was number 1, and the bocce ball courts were number 2. It really surprised me when I saw that. But people do use it. Yeah, so we said, well, they're there. They're already parked. People are used to using some of those. So we did negotiate that those will continue. We made some improvements. But those will continue, but the association will not be paying anything the way they're paying right now. So those are just kind of in there as an extra. There are some slight improvements. These are not things that I think will be a deal breaker or a deal sealer for anybody. But instead of 2 rounds of golf, will now be 4 rounds. We have gotten a lot of complaints about the arrangement of the driving range, where our members had to buy a bat ball and go all the way to the bat and shoot off the artificial surface. In the future, according to this deal, if you want to go to the bat, we can hit unlimited balls for free. Okay? If you want to hit off the grass in the front, you can do that too for $10 a day, unlimited balls, except for days. Every now and then, the country club actually puts out mats in the front end of as I understand, I'm not a golfer, but, so I don't use that, but they put our mats at the front because of grass conditions and things like that. If they're hitting off of a synthetic surface from the front of the course, then it's first come, first served. Our members can go there, you can hit all day off that, you don't have to pay anything for that. And of course, now, this is probably going to end up being a moot point, depending on how long the voting goes. Originally, we thought that this whole thing would probably be wrapped up by now, including the vote. And so we had negotiated as part of it that if this deal is approved, then the previous deal dies, the existing amendment deal. Basically, whether that dies before or after this deal is now going to depend on how long the vote takes, because the board at its last meeting, at the end of this year, was the first option, possibly extend that original contract, and we voted that we're not going to extend under those terms. So that'll come to an end anyway. However, what we did work out, what we anticipated it we would be done by mid-year, is a credit to the purchase price. So every dollar that we paid under the old agreement from July 1st on was credited against the purchase price. So right now, what that means is that all these things that we hear people talk about, we're going to spend $202.75 million, that is false. Okay? As of this month, the purchase price is $2.66 million, and it will continue to drop between now and the end of the year, depending on how long it takes to finish the vote, and if it's approved, how long it takes to close the deal. Okay? So right now, the purchase price is actually $2.66 million, and it is dropping about $30,000 a year. Can I hold questions till the end? Now, I appreciate it because we can get through, because some of the answers may be in here, and then what I'd like to do is get through this, and I'll try to speed this up a little bit so we can have lots of time for any questions that people have. Okay, so when would this deal be effective? Okay, despite the fact that all the parties have signed, parties being the association, the country club, and the developer, it is not an effective contract yet. It will not be effective until and if the homeowners vote to approve it. If the homeowners do not vote to approve it, it's as if this contract never existed. Okay. So this won't be effective. Ultimately what that means is it's really up to all of you as to whether we can do this or not. So the way to think about that, I think, is that we negotiated what we thought is the best deal we could negotiate. We worked on this for a year and a half, just about. Okay, and we looked at lots of different things, went back and forth a lot. This is the best we think we can do. Now it's up to you guys. If you think it's a good deal, then you should vote for it. If you don't, you should vote against it. But it's really up to you. None of this is effective until you make that decision. So what's the cost? Like I said, it's $2.75 less any of the payments made after June 30th. The other thing that's critical that a lot of people have asked about is, are there any ongoing payments? And the answer is absolutely not. We are not. This is a one-time thing. And again, that's part of the reason why we wanted to separate off that extra lot up there. We don't have any entanglements that might pull us into having to have any ongoing financial or any other kind of obligation with regard to the country club. So, now, obvious question, where will the money come from? We looked at different ways to do it and ultimately decided that we thought the best thing to do would be actually to borrow the money. And the reason for that is that if this is approved, and if we buy this property, this has permanent impact on Somerset, and I think has permanent value for Somerset. So that means people that don't live here yet, people that are going to build houses as the rest of Somerset builds out, or people that are going to buy houses when some of us may end up selling our house, they're going to get the benefit of this. And by stretching out using the loan, they're going to also help pay for it. Instead of putting the total cost just on current members, by financing it, we can spread that out and make sure that future members who get benefits also help pay for it. Now, a couple questions that come up with this always, and there's a lot of misinformation about this. One is, well, doesn't that mean we can lose the property if we don't make the payments or it's foreclosed? The answer is no, because none of this property is being offered as security. Okay, this is not a mortgage on the property the way, you know, when we buy houses and stuff, we get a mortgage and the mortgage attaches the property. There's none of this property being offered for security. Okay, because we're an association, what banks are a lot more interested in is what's our financial strength, what's our ability, you know, how are our assessments going, how much money do we have from that. And that's what they look at. Somerset, fortunately, is very financially healthy compared to most associations, even that. So, no, once this land comes over to Somerset, it will be made into common area, and it will be a permanent part of Somerset, as well as the water rights and everything else will be a permanent part of Somerset from here on out. Next slide. Let's see. Okay. The other big question is, what's this going to do to assessments? And the answer is nothing. It will not increase assessment. And the reason for that is right now in assessments, because of the previous contract, there is $15 a month built into assessments to pay for that. Okay. This debt service, if we borrow this money, roughly speaking, and I'll just touch on it, and if there are questions, last break, Ray over here, who's our treasurer, he's been dealing with banks. And I should say at this point, we actually do have firm commitments from banks for 5%, 15 years. But the amount of the payment to pay off this loan is roughly $8 a month. So that's obviously substantially less than the 15 that's already in your assessment. And in fact, some of the, we're going through the budgeting process right now with SET's assessment, and there's actually, you know, depending on how it works out, it looks like there may be a small reduction in the assessment. But that even includes the money to pay for this, as well as any reserves we have to take. They have to have the reserve consultant come out and look at all the property that we're proposing to buy. And the reserve implications, what, like 50 cents a month per unit, something like that? And it's trivial, and a lot of that's because of the way we set up the maintenance requirements, where the country club has to pay so much of stuff that if you were a landlord, the things that you might normally pay for your tenant, we're not going to pay for any of that. We'll talk about that later. The bottom line is assessments are not going to increase. And in fact, there's room to decrease assessments, and especially as Somerset builds out, because we're basically expecting, what, about 1,000 more homes before Somerset's finished. So as all those homes come in, that just means the amount any single home is paying will get smaller and smaller and smaller. So the bottom line of this whole thing is, this is a way where we can buy these assets that are very valuable to Somerset, and we can do it in a way that will not increase assessments, and in fact gives us a cushion over time to decrease assessments, starting potentially next year. So stay tuned to the budgeting process for that. Okay? So we'll go on to the lease. We will, like I said, our plan is to lease it back immediately, and the lease is fairly restricted. If you read it, it is posted online. The only allowed use is a private member-based country club. So in other words, basically what they have right now. They're not allowed to make it a public club. They're not allowed to sell it. The lease is not signable. It is not transferable without our express approval of that. So that's the only thing it can be used for. The other thing we did, though, which is not the same as a normal lease, is we basically tried to negotiate this deal such that they will continue to pay for everything they pay for as owners. Okay? So they are responsible for 100% of the maintenance on everything that they're taking back on the lease. Okay? They're, you know, and I mean even like if there's a structural problem with the maintenance bill, not our problem. You know, normally if you had a house and you were renting it to a renter and you found structural problems in the house, you could probably assume you'd have to get involved in taking care of that. Not in this case. Okay, everything that they're leasing back, they're going to be 100% responsible for paying for operating, maintaining, and repairing. Okay, so we've tried to set this up that we're not taking on any additional costs that we don't have right now as kind of the outside part. So, and that includes operating costs, that includes all the maintenance, it includes insurances. You know, they've got to insure it with us as a covered insured, but they've got to buy that, they've got to do all the permits. If there are changes in government regulations that affect their business, they're going to have to deal with that. We've really tried to set this up that once we make that first bet, initial purchase, the $2.66 million, or it may be down as low as, depending on how long it takes to do the vote, close the deal, it could go down as low as $2.5 million. I mean, it all depends. Like I said, it's going to be dropping about $30,000 a month for the rest of the year. But we tried to set this up so that we do not have any ongoing financial commitment or responsibility, since we're not going to be using that land per se. The one place where we do have responsibility, we actually have responsibility now under the existing agreements, is that joint facility from the Truckee River up here. But what we've negotiated for that, which is a little bit better than the previous setup, is if there are, first of all, then we're not talking about for major repairs. If there's a problem on this pipeline link, what we've negotiated is we will split the cost of fixing that problem based on the relative volumes of water that each party moves. Okay, and they move a lot more water than we move when you get right down to it. Because we only have one water permit for 25 acre feet. They've got substantially more. So, next slide. Okay, some other points of the lease, okay? What are they going to pay? They're going to pay us $2,200 a year. Okay? A lot of people question, well, gee, why didn't we charge them a lot more than that? And the reason was, in the course of the negotiations, we explored that. But the bottom line was, we would have to pay more to get it, and we would have to take on more traditional landlord-type responsibilities. From our point of view, the association is not doing this as an income-producing venture. That's not the objective. We are a nonprofit organization. What we're trying to do is secure the future of the community. So by giving them a low annual lease fee, we're able to get what we think is a pretty low price for the assets, which we'll talk about, and no ongoing responsibility that's typical of landlord. Termination. There are several things in the contract. You'll see a whole section on defaults, several ways the lease can be terminated. Probably the key one is if the country club does not operate it as a championship golf course, and here, instead of like the developer's reverter, which is 1 year, our time period is 45 days. And why is that so much shorter than what the developer agreed to? The answer is because if you wait much longer than that, you've pretty much lost the golf course. But look at Northgate over here. But what happened, and that used to be when I first moved in, that was a nice, beautiful green golf course you saw every day when you came down. And you can see what it is now. The whole point of that short period is to give the association the option of preserving the golf course if that's what association members want to do, or preserving it as a green space, as park space. But the point is that if you basically let land like that go for very long, and certainly if you let it go for a year, you've got to go in and pretty much redo everything, even if you just want to plant grass for a park. If you keep it green, once it's green, it's a lot easier to keep it that way than it is to let it go brown and then bring it back green again. That's why we went with a short number of days. Now, here's an interesting thing in the lease, which came in later on in the negotiations, was after we did the letter of intent. But in the letter of intent, if you go back and read that, that's where the right of first refusal that's in the purchase agreement is at. Well, it occurred to us, well, that only comes into play if they try to sell it. If they don't have somebody else who wants to purchase it, you can't exercise a right of first refusal. So one of the things we negotiated in addition to that is an actual option to purchase if the lease terminates. And you can see the conditions in there. It even lays out how, if we don't agree on the price, how we're going to settle our differences. It's all in there. But basically, this is in addition to the right of first refusal. So what we really have is, if they try to sell it, we've got a right of first refusal to buy it. And then at either 50% or 100% of the offer price, depending on when they sell it. If they don't try to sell it, but if they stop operating on that, if they stop operating some kind of club for their members, we have the option to go in and buy it. And even if they never put it up for sale. Again, it's not an obligation to buy it. We are not forced to buy it. But if we think that we want that piece of land, if there's value in the association for whatever reason, we have the right to buy it. Okay. The water facility agreement, I said this really only pertains to the infrastructure that's used, that's built in to distribute water throughout this property. So it includes the pipelines, the pumps, a couple of wells, a bunch of stuff like that. This agreement is in place, as I said earlier, only as long as the lease is in place. Now, one issue that came up, because the facilities are shared in part, the question comes up, who's going to operate it? And we went around on this. Now, the truth is, the country club has operated facilities for us ever since Somerset was built. The association has never operated those facilities. And we said, okay, they were a little bit nervous about giving up that because, our golf course is a lot smaller than theirs, and this is critical to keeping the golf course healthy. So we agreed that under certain conditions, we'll let them continue to operate, which is what they've been doing. Okay? What are the conditions? The conditions are, first of all, we will not pay anything to have them operated for us. They have to operate it for our part, for the Canyon 9. Okay, but we're not paying for that since we own the facility, so we would be owning the facilities. Okay. What else? I think that the term on this one is if they, I have it on the slide. If they don't operate in the way that we need in order to continue to irrigate Canyon 9, we can break that agreement in 10 days. Okay, so it's a very short time period. We've also negotiated that during the time they're operating, they have to train our people on how to operate. So we can designate like our maintenance crew that we have here. They're required to train those people in the operations so that if we do need to take over, we will be able to take over. And if we do take over, and we have to operate it both for us and for them, they got to pay us $1,000 a month. Okay, so what we've got is really some, I think, pretty decent incentives to make sure they operate it in a way that we need to have operated for our part, so that so they can keep control of what they need for their golf course. So that's a key part of that. The rest of the water facilities agreement has to do mostly with who's responsible for what when it comes to maintenance. Okay. Basically, like I said before, all the stuff that's on the premises that they're leasing back, they are 100% responsible for operations, maintenance, repairs, all that kind of stuff. I talked about how we're going going to share maintenance responsibilities for the pipeline or retention pond. There is a existing water sharing agreement right now that's recorded against that land. Again, if this, and that was there because there were two different owners involved, the country club and the association. If we buy that land and this deal is approved, then that agreement is no longer needed, it terminates. So that's basically the nuts and bolts of the water facilities agreement. Again, there's a lot of details, but you can see those online if you're interested. So why are we doing this? Okay, I can't emphasize this enough. We are not doing this to buy a golf course. The association, the current board, has no interest in running a golf course. We don't think that's what people want us to do, to take over that course because of the cost involved right now. We're doing this for the strategic reason of having control in case something happens to the country club. Okay, golf is fortunately, I mean, right now the economy is rebounding, golf is rebounding. They went through some tough times. Golf all across the United States is going through tough times. What we don't want to do is have either a third party that could care less about Somerset come in and take over that land, or have it all go back to the developer and have him make the decisions for us about what's going to be built or what's going to happen with this land that runs throughout the community. Okay. Like I said, we're not doing this to buy a golf course. The way we look at it, quite frankly, is we're buying the land that happens to have a golf course on it right now. There's no guarantee that it will be a golf course at any point in the future, but that's what it is right now. And we have made absolutely no commitments to operate a golf course. I saw interesting, whenever we do anything like this, rivers go around the community and stuff, I saw an interesting one today that I was told some people have said that if the golf course, if the country club goes bankrupt, somehow the association could be required to operate the golf course, or even the city of Reno could force us to operate the golf course. Absolutely untrue. Absolutely untrue. I have no idea where that came from. I thought it was creative. Next slide. Okay. This is what this deal is about. What we want to do is we want to make sure that if something happens to the country club, we already own all the land. So we're not tied up in bankruptcy procedures. Does anybody here know what's going on with Arrow Creek right now? Has anybody been watching that or been involved in that? Okay. In Arrow Creek, I'll just divert a little bit because this is real stuff. I've gotten several calls from Arrow Creek trying to figure out what we're doing because they're trying to catch up now, because they sold their golf courses to an independent golf course operator, which has been proposed here. A number of people at board meetings and said, oh, they should just sell the golf course, make it public, everything will be fine. Okay, well, that's what they did at Arrow Creek. The operator's gone bankrupt. Okay, everything is tied up in bankruptcy court right now. The association has no idea. They're trying to work out some deal with the bankruptcy court so that the land isn't sold off to somebody totally separate. Because, once you get into bankruptcy court, that judge is pretty much God. So he could say, I don't care if there's a reverter, I don't care if it's zoned this way or that way, I'm going to sell it to whatever gets the most money to pay off creditors. That's what they're after. And they pretty much have complete autonomy. That's what's going on at Arrow Creek right now. And I have not talked to them in the last maybe 3 weeks, so I don't know if they worked anything out. But they're scrambling, trying to figure out how can they make sure that they don't lose control of that land. Because they did sell it to an outside developer, outside golf course operator, and they went bankrupt. So by doing this deal, what we're doing is trying to guarantee that we will never, Somerset will never go through what Northgate or DeAndrea or some of these other communities have had to go through, because we will already own the land. So that way, and all the water and the facilities, if there's a bankruptcy, for example, doesn't matter to us, because all that happens is the lease will get canceled, but the judge can't do anything with the land or the property or anything. So that's what we're trying to do. don't have to pay anything. We get the nice green belt, it looks real good when people come into the community. Residents have the choice of joining, or they have some limited amenities, that's all good. But if they fail or cease operating for whatever reason, there's some real potential downsides to Somerset in terms of what happens in that land. Whether it goes to another operator, I would think most likely is it would end up going back to the developer. What can the developer do? He can build houses on it. He can sell it to builders. But remember, none of that land is subject to our aesthetic guidelines or any of that kind of stuff. So we have nothing to say about what goes in there, whether it's high-density condos or houses that look just like the rest of Somerset. We don't have anything to say about that. What this deal does is makes us indifferent to the country club. We've tried to set it up in a way that gives them their best chance of being successful, but focuses them on running a private, member-based club. But if they fail, we're, for the most part, we're protected. Then all we have to do is decide what are we going to do with that land. And what I would expect is that the homeowners, if and when that comes to pass, would be allowed to choose. Do they want to try to keep it as a golf course? That'll have an impact on assessments, no question. Okay, golf courses are expensive. Or do they want to make it into the park, green space, trails? Do they want to do other kinds of amenities? The point is, though, it's the owners that will get to decide. It won't be the developer. Because what else can the developer do? Like I said, you can sell it. You can also strip out the water rights, take them somewhere else, or sell it to another party, and just abandon the land. That's what happened in Northgate. Okay, and you can all see that happened in Northgate. So we will have a choice, and that's what this whole thing is about. Sir, okay, we see this. The board sees this. I see this as a win-win. Basically, like I said, no matter what happens at the country club, Somerset's integrity as a community is protected. If the country club succeeds, that's great. And if the country club fails, at least we're in control of what happens, and we can decide what we want to do with the land. And quite frankly, I think that from my discussions with them, I think this gives the country club probably their best chance to continue to grow, build a clubhouse, and succeed as the type of country club that it was always envisioned would be in Somerset. So that's basically what this deal is about, and I'll answer any questions. I'll start with this gentleman who asked a question about asking questions earlier. Do you have questions? And first of all, I appreciate everybody letting me get through it. We had the same thing at Aspen Lodge last week, and I didn't get 3 words into it before it was just all over the place. The time before was not as bad. The time before was actually pretty good. I thought that was okay. Yeah, but I mean, it's like, okay, now we'll answer. I'll stay here as long as you guys want. I'll answer whatever question.
I apologize if you have not paying attention when you first started. Did you introduce yourself? I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I've done this. This is, I think, the 10th time I've done this type of presentation, either with the letter of intent, the earlier presentation, or this one. I'm Tony Faconis. I'm the president of the association. So I'm on the board of directors and I'm currently president. So I apologize. Yes, I need forgive me for doing that.
When we were talking about the amenities for the homeowners, and I know it's been a while ago that was kind of early through the $15 a month.
Yeah, it was under the developer control board.
Right. As a homeowner, it doesn't feel like it's really an amenity in the sense that we're contributing $15 a month towards that, but yet we still have to pay golf there.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that maybe we're privileged to do that, but it doesn't feel like we're being rewarded for contributing. And especially when you go on livingsocial.com, the same deal to play the golf course, perhaps even cheaper rate of time. So,
By the way, you can give those, Libby, if you see those kinds of deals, give them for yourself if you want.
I will certainly.
Yeah.
But it just seems, so it seems like it's been a little bit of a raw deal in that sense. And so, but it sounds like that if this goes through, then that situation goes away, it doesn't really exist, and that money's going to be utilized then to make payments on the loan.
Yes.
And then
And it'll be extra. They won't take that much from the rest.
And then as us as
I mean, it'll still be a private club like it is, okay? There are, like I said, we made some tweaks to the amenities. I will not tell you that the amenities are a driving force for this, because, you know, we're really interested in the strategic issues, as I said. But yeah, the reason, I don't know, have you been here for a while? I don't know.
I've been the resident for 10 years.
Okay, so you've been here since the beginning. So you probably know all the history with the other deal and stuff like that. The way we got into even negotiating this was by looking for a way to do something about that deal, which wasn't a great deal. Okay, but it was the deal it was entered into. You know, we actually looked at trying to cancel that deal. That our legal counsel told us there would be substantial costs involved in doing that. That deal is actually been, there were several complaints filed about the deal. That deal is being looked at by the Department of Real Estate and the Attorney General Office, who acts as the attorney for the Department of Real Estate, which is a state agency. To date, they have not filed a complaint. I've met with them in the past. And they were well aware that we were trying to negotiate a good deal, and they decided to enter into a stipulation to postpone anything to see what would come out of this. Okay, so, you know, that's how this whole thing got started. What we ended up with, I think, is particularly good as a long-term solution. But it was done basically because it was better to try to renegotiate it than go through the legal process that would be involved. Now, I will say one thing that a lot of people aren't aware of. We actually, over the last year and a half, have made substantial reductions to what we're paying under that contract by the way we interpreted it based on the way the original agreement was written. We thought we were overpaying. We actually not only got the country club to agree that we were overpaying, we recovered the overpayment amount. We agreed as part of the stipulation with the Attorney General's office that we were not going to build, they were not going to build the 2014 piece of the amenity, the original contract called for the add amenities. They didn't build that. We withheld $100,000. I mean, all in all, I think we recovered something like $180,000 thereabouts from what the payments, the way the payments had been interpreted prior to the homeowner board getting on, becoming one. So that's what we tried to do with that, to minimize that. But this is really a good.
There was something, I believe, in one of those documents, and again, I understand that this may or may not resemble reality. There's a lawsuit, I guess, perhaps, in regards to that $15.
There is, this is what I was just talking about, and I did see a statement in here that said that that deal was canceled at the end of this year because of the Attorney General. The Attorney General had absolutely nothing to do with that. That was the normal option that was written into the contract, and this board, at the last board meeting, said we would not exercise that option to extend it. Okay? There is no lawsuit at the moment. There might still be. Okay, the fact is the Attorney General's office and the Department of Real Estate still have, even if this deal is approved, they actually have the right, contrary to what I know a number of people have been saying around the community, they do have the right to pursue a lawsuit against the developer board.
That's what Lucas was saying.
See, that's absolutely not true. That's not true. That's absolutely true. Yeah, no, the Attorney General can do that, and in fact, anybody as an individual member can pursue a lawsuit. Okay, as a member of the association, you have the right to do that. Okay, the board had already decided that it didn't make sense from the board's point of view for the same reason. Like I saw another thing in here that talked about the reserves. We were underfunded by $1 million in the reserves, and somehow this deal would prevent anybody from going after that. This has nothing to do with the reserves. Okay? What has happened, I'll tell you, and this has been discussed at multiple board meetings. We undertook an investigation with our legal counsel to see what, can we recover money for the developer, both for reserves, for construction defects, for all kinds of stuff. Okay? The bottom line is this. If you're going to sue the developer, there's really only two ways you can do it. You can sue Somerset Development Company, which is his company that built Somerset, or any of the, there's a whole range of companies associated with that. Okay, but they're all subversion of Somerset Development. You can sue Somerset Development, or you can sue the developer, okay? Or the developer board. Okay. First of all, Somerset Development no longer has any assets in it. So what are we going to recover? Okay, we could spend $100,000, $150,000 and possibly even win a lawsuit. Okay, but there's absolutely nothing to collect. Now you can sue the developer. Okay, here's where the other part comes in. Okay, Nevada law is very clear that the association is required to indemnify all previous board members. Okay, for anything where they get sued. The only exception, and I'm not a lawyer, so as a lawyer, maybe they can amplify on this, that you have to prove willful malfeasance or gross negligence, which are apparently fairly high standards and almost never get proved. Okay. Otherwise, the association is required to indemnify the developer. So, if we sue the developer and we win, and the court says, pay the association $1 million. First of all, our $150,000 of legal fees we've got to pay. His $150,000 of legal fees we've got to pay, and the $1 million we've got to pay. Now, see, here's the other thing. People say, "Oh, you got insurance." Well, here's what our attorneys told us about insurance. Insurance, the D&O insurance, or those kinds of things, covers members if they're sued by third parties. So, for example, if you sued me as a board member, the insurance would pay my costs. If one board member sues another board member, which is what we're talking about, have the current board sue the previous board, the insurance company generally won't pay for that. That's what we've been told. So, that's the other reason, that makes it. First of all, there's no money to be. The chances of us even recovering our costs are very low from everything that we've been able to find out. However, if we sue the developer, we not only have to pay his legal costs, we have to indemnify him and everything else. If the Attorney General sues the developer, if you sue the developer, the insurance company probably will cover it. So, we made a business decision, and that's what it's all about.
So what's this lawsuit, what was the sort of, sentence or two, the elements?
What it was is a complaint was filed. There's a process through the State Department of Real Estate where anybody who's a homeowner here or any other association can file a complaint. And it goes through a whole process. But what happens basically is the Department of Real Estate will evaluate it. If you say file a complaint that I did something wrong, they won't, they'll basically contact us and say, somebody said you did something wrong, provide their side of the story. They'll gather evidence and then they'll evaluate it. If they think something may have been done wrong, then they go talk to their attorney, which happens to be the Attorney General's office. If the Attorney General then, based on the discussions between the two and, however, how lawyers work, they decide whether they really think there's a case there. Then it's up to the Department of Real Estate as the client and the Attorney General's office as their attorney. They will file a complaint if they think something may have gone wrong, and then you basically have a trial. But it's not a court trial, it's in front of, there's a commission. 5 commissioners travel around the state and they hear the complaints. And so they make a decision, and that's the first level. They basically ask the court at the first level, and depending on what the parties want, then it might end up in a real court. But that's the process. And so what happened is somebody filed a complaint that this agreement, the original agreement, the $15 a month agreement, was violated various fiduciary responsibilities and stuff like that. See, here's the thing that's hard about this. When somebody files a complaint, we don't actually get to see the complaint. And we don't necessarily know what the actual complaint is. Because like in in this case, the Attorney General drafted a draft complaint, but it was never filed, it was never finalized. So, first of all, you don't know how much of that is negotiating stuff. And even the draft complaint is very general. They'll say, we allege violation of section 116.147 or whatever, but they don't actually say why, or, you know, what was done wrong. So we don't actually find that out until it gets down to an actual hearing.
So
But there was a
it's
complaint.
sort of related to the $15 a month.
Yeah, there's a complaint that deal with
fiduciary
that, yeah,
responsibility.
something like that. That's the best I know. We had a meeting July of 2013 down in Las Vegas. I was at that. What's interesting about this, the complaint was filed against the developer board, not against the current board. Okay? And the country club is actually not a party to that either. So you've got the current association, who's the most affected by it, and the country club, who's most affected by it. Neither one of them are actually parties, because it's about the Attorney General and the developer board. But obviously they wanted to know our opinion, so we had a meeting, and based on that, that's when they asked me a bunch of questions about, oh, we hear you're trying to negotiate some change, what is it? And at that point, the bottom line was they decided to hold off filing anything pending, seeing what happens with this. That's where it stands there. Any other questions?
Yeah, I do, Tony.
Excuse me.
Well, I'm looking at her instead, that's our
While
problem.
we sit here, could you go back to like the second slide, which actually shows the property that
Oh,
we're
the map.
discussing?
The map.
Which the map that shows the, humans love visual,
Yeah.
and
Go back to
I
that.
think it's just really helpful.
Yeah. Keep going, keep going. There. Okay.
And how many acres is that?
224.
You got his attention first, though. I'm just so impressed with Gray's and Tony's negotiation of this lease. I mean, this is so complicated. A regular board of different people would not have been able to pull this off. I just commend you. Well, I've been wondering, another question, was it not illegal for the developer to turn over the homeowners association, the SOA to us with debt?
No. We looked into that. Another thing we looked at, that's not really have anything to do with the question was it legal to turn over to the association, this building in Canyon 9 with debt on it? And the answer is yes, because he did it properly. There's a legal requirement that if he discloses things in a certain way, he's allowed to turn over stuff with debt. And that was one of the things we looked at when we were doing the investigation we talked about. And yes, he did it properly, so we had no recourse. Okay.
Yeah, Tony, the SGCC, which currently owns the golf course, are they running in the black?
They are the last that I know. My understanding, I get to sit in, I can sit in on board meetings, not the executive session, so I don't see the details. But I have seen some of their stuff. Last year and the year before, I know they ran in black.
And it seems like it's only getting better, and there's a lot more houses.
Well, I know that they've gotten more members, which is
Yeah.
really critical for them. But I can't tell you what their, exact financials are. I mean, year before last, they were black, it was like $30,000. So it's in the right direction, and I can't say that.
Okay, and the other question is that no matter who owns a golf course, whether it's the people that run the country club, or if it reverts to us, this whole Somerset is going to be worth a lot more money with an operating golf course. Whether you live on it or whether you live near it, this is very a prestigious place, and it's known quite well. It seems to be getting a lot more play than it used to. The thought of something happening to it and turning it into green space destroying the golf course by turning it into green space would affect adversely all of our property values to a great degree. So it is, everyone that lives in Somerset, I would think, would be very, very positive about making this work and voting on to make that, it seems imperative to make this golf course continue to work as part of Somerset, or it's going to cost us all money. That's the way I see it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I have to agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay? But I do think, now speaking with my board of director hat on, okay, I do think, and this is why we've said it before, that it should be a decision that's up to the homeowners if we come to that point. But a couple things. What we try to do is give some range of what the impact is. Okay, right now, the way they operate the golf course, which is at a very high quality level for the way they maintain it and stuff like that, you know, that's where that estimate that you've seen online that you know, we said, well, if we took it over and paid 100% of the cost to run it just like they run it, not the restaurant, but everything else. So you've got the pro shop, you've got the caddies and the carts and all that kind of stuff. That would probably cost, actually it should be a little bit less. That, when I made that estimate, when I did that calculation, it was based on 2,478 homes in Somerset, and there are right now 2,577 with that homes since we started this thing. But in any event, that's a minor change. But that's where the $50-70 estimate comes from. Okay, that's if we pay 100% of the cost and operate it at the quality level that they're operating with all the amenities that they have over there, except the restaurant, then that's probably what it would cost. That's what we're estimate. On the other hand,
What was that figure again?
$50-70.
I would add that means that all members can play for free.
Right, for
There's
free.
no
That's
tax
right.
fees.
That's why I said, well, that's, see, what I was coming to is that, you know, on the other end, if you just want to let the grass grow, cut the grass and use it as a park, you're probably talking $1 to $3. But there's every possible thing in between. You could, you know, obviously, to the extent to charge people that play on it, even if we own it and made it a community course just for Somerset residents, you know, we could charge something. If it's a $20, $50, whatever greens fee, that reduces that amount. If we don't have the same quality of, you know, we don't maintain this huge fleet of golf carts, we bring their own golf carts, that reduces costs. If we drop the quality of the landscaping down, the turf, you know, the turf quality and stuff, certainly, you know, go to a city of Reno golf course, it doesn't look like this one. Go to Arrow Creek, it doesn't look like this one. Okay. So there's lots of things, we try to put an envelope and put everything in between, but the point is, we think it should be up to the owners. And some people will say, oh, well, you know, but if they go out of business right away, how come we haven't done all those analyses already? We need those analyses before we can vote. And my response to that is trying to have everything done in detail before you vote is an excuse for not voting. Because the fact is, they're not, you know, if we did this deal tomorrow, they're not going to go out of business overnight. They may never go out of business. But even if they do go out, it's not going to be overnight. What I suggest is the smart way to deal with this is let's do the deal. Then let's immediately task our strategic planning committee, which we set up, to start working with community people and lay out options and put costs in and keep that on the shelf and keep it updated. And that way, if we need it 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, we can make that decision really quickly as a community. That to me makes sense. But you know, to say that we can't decide about this until we do an infinite number of scenarios, because there's no infinite number of scenarios we're doing, it just doesn't make sense to me. This is the opportunity now, we should decide on it.
I mean, to me, the bottom line is right now the golf course seems to have some money. They're going to be in existence for a while. The question is, are they going to be in existence 15 years from now or 20 years from now? And if that happens, do we want to be in control if they go out of business? And are you willing to spend $8 a month or something less than that to have that insurance or that possibility? I mean, there's a lot of other details that go into this of leases and so forth. But the bottom line is, do we, if they ever go out of business 20 years from now or 30 years from now, do we want ourselves and our neighbors to have the right to decide what we do with this property?
That's exactly what this thing is about. Do we make the decision, or do we let the developer make the decision? That's what it's gonna come down to, Shirley.
I just have two things I wanted to say. After the first publication of the Country Club purchase agreement was on the association website, a new provision, 3.9, entitled Satisfaction of Claims, was subsequently added. This provision releases the Somerset Development Company, Blake Smith, board member Tiffany Rowland, and board member Ray Lee from any claim or liability related to their actions in negotiating, implementing the current Country Club lease agreement, which is the subject of a complaint for disciplinary action by the Nevada Attorney General's Office. This complaint is based on a determination that it was unlawfully entered into. The question is, why was this provision added to the purchase agreement? What relevance does it have to the purchase agreement? And how does it benefit the homeowners association? One other question. Why is the board already counting ballots and making results known before the dissemination of opposing viewpoints to all homeowners? In the absence of opposing viewpoints, uninformed voters are most likely to follow the approval recommendation of the board. Why were opposing viewpoints not included within the ballot mailings, and when will they be disseminated? Is this delay intentional in order to obtain as many approval votes as possible before sending out the opposition statements? This is clearly an NRS violation. And we've discussed this with you before. And I
disagree with you.
One other thing I must say in that regard, if there's anybody interested in hearing opposing opinions, there will be a meeting at 5:30 tomorrow at Aspen Lodge. There'll be several speakers, and we invite everybody to come, ask any questions you have. We'll be there to answer your questions.
Okay, let me ask you a couple of questions about that, because you brought up about no details. Okay. First of all, your characterization, if I understood you, what you said was that we basically indemnified the previous board for any legal actions. I've seen that point. Is that what you're saying?
In the agreement, there was a 3.9
Right.
section added.
Are we
And
gonna
that
vote?
basically, if the community approves this agreement, it indemnifies them from any further legal action.
No, it does not. It does not. Absolutely. That's just flat wrong.
What does it do?
Okay. What it does is it says the association, if we get this deal at the price we want, with all the terms that we want, the other deal goes away, we, the association, are happy. For the reasons that I explained earlier, it makes no sense for us to sue the Development Association to sue the developer. Okay. There is no indemnity against the Attorney General continuing action. There's no indemnity against you bringing up this suit. You, as a homeowner, have the right to bring this suit. Okay, we've not indemnified them for that.
It reads.
No, it does not. It says the association is satisfied. The association, the board. Okay, because for the reasons I've explained, it makes no sense for us to try to sue this anyway. Okay, if you want to sue them, you can. Now, we'll still have to pay the legal fee, but chances are our insurance will do that. Okay, if the Attorney General sues them, same situation. Okay, but from what we can tell, there is basically no chance of recovering the money, which people who keep making this claim about 3.9 never address. Okay,
Why is it in there?
it's there to say, it basically says what we said from the beginning. It says that if this deal closes under the terms that we want, we are happy to be done with the old contract. That's what it says. Our attorney actually wrote that. The reason it was in there is because at one point they wanted a bunch of other language which we wouldn't agree with. So our attorney basically said, it no difference. It does exactly what we've said all along. Let's put it in there and get it signed. Okay? We have not given, I mean, the idea that somehow we could even somehow interfere with the Attorney General's decision to bring a suit or not. We cannot make an agreement that's binding on the Attorney General or anybody else. All we can do is make an agreement that's binding on the board. Okay, that's what we're doing. So all this stuff, and it's like most of this stuff, I don't know where this came from because it was on there, but, you know. The other claim, I mean, one of the claims that I love in here, one of my favorites, is,
All this will be discussed tomorrow night.
well,
Or anybody who wants to ask.
okay, but
Why
right
can't we
now,
discuss
right
it
now,
together?
we're discussing this meeting right here.
You asked the question.
So, you know, one of my favorites is this drought impact on water rights. What is the true value of gaining water rights? Water rights can be severely reduced or eliminated by the water authority, whoever the heck that is, if the drought continues or worsens. In Las Vegas, lawns are already gone by governmental action. So if you think this deal guarantees the golf course will stay green, think that one through again. Mother Nature might have another surprise for us. Okay, I would like to know which water authority has authority to tell us not to use our water. Do you have any idea?
I think it's the governing water authority. There's two water authorities in Reno. There's the Washoe County Water Authority and there's the Truckee Meadows.
That's right.
Water.
And we don't get water from either of them.
Well, what about
Okay.
getting the water from the river?
Well, that's right. The only water authority, there is no state agency that has the authority to tell us not to pump water from our wells. There's also no federal authority that can tell us not to pump water from our wells. We own that, or whoever owns that permit owns that water. Okay? Up to whatever the limit is. There is a federal water master which regulates withdrawals from the Truckee River. So that person can say, and in fact did say, at the end of July, more water out of the Truckee River. Okay? Typically, the Truckee River has a season. I think it's from April 1 to usually the end of October. Okay, so this year they cut it off 2 months early. However, that's where the supplemental rights come in.
So you're saying there's plenty of groundwater?
Explanation. Hold on. Okay. Yes. Nobody. There is no legal authority that can tell us not to use groundwater. Okay. Whoever owns that permit owns that water. The only thing they can say is you can't take more than your permit allows. That's the 411 feet. Okay. Then, right now, I think the number. I want to say that the golf course has about 85 acre-feet of, I don't remember the acre. It's about 85 acre-feet of river water, okay? And we have 100 acre-feet of supplemental rights. That means that if the federal water master cuts out all of the Truckee, let's say they never open the Truckee River up next year, what does that do to us? That means we pump an extra 85 acre-feet out of the wells. So this whole thing that somehow there's this boogeyman authority that can tell us not to water the golf course. Unless Congress passes some new laws, they cannot do that.
So you're saying there's plenty of groundwater that the association will own
Yeah.
that cannot be controlled by any authority?
They cannot, the groundwater, what I've been told when I've looked into that is no, there are no entities at the state level or federal level that can regulate the groundwater other, for permits that you already have, other than make sure you don't go over that limit. Okay, so that's the answer to that one.
You may have said earlier, but what percentage of water do we draw from the river source to take care of?
Well,
In relation to-
for the association, see, we've got bigger ones, because for the association, we've got 2 water permits. One's 25 acre-feet out of the river, which is the one we use now. And we've got one for 18 acre-feet, roughly, out of a spring on the Peapine. The problem with that is, nobody ever built any infrastructure to grab that water. So that water right now just keeps on kind of running by. Okay. So for us, the river's really important. Now, if we have these supplemental rights, and we own part of this, and the golf course, you know, has enough water there, then we have more leeway. But the point is, the supplemental rates are key. So, because that's the part of the water that can be cut off by somebody telling us, no, you can't use that. The other thing that's really important about the way these water rates were set up, the ones that the country club owns, is they are set up, they have, water permits specify the maximum amount of water from a specific source. Okay? But the way these water permits are set up is you can shuffle around the actual source as long as you don't exceed the aggregate. So as long as you don't exceed the total amount. For example, the water permits that are owned by the country club actually have permits for 5 wells. There are only 2 wells that have ever been drilled. But they're allowed to pull water out of those 2 to make up for the 3 that have never been drilled. Okay, so there's a great deal of flexibility in these water rights, which I've been told you don't always get. That's the way this was set up. Another question?
The golf course right now, the country club, is that being subsidized by the SOA?
Well,
Yes.
Yes.
depends on your definition of the term subsidy.
So
The
if
issue, the argument that
financially,
comes up is the $15, well, actually now it's $12, it's a little bit less than that per month that we're paying because of the adjustments that I mentioned earlier. But, the argument has been made, and a lot of people agree with it, and I certainly don't disagree with it, that the price paid seemed kind of high for what was being received.
So
it's considered a subsidy.
if they're in black, even after receiving money from the SOA, once you sign this contract and say for example, when you say yes, then they will stop getting that money. Then how do we expect them to run
That's
when they are already black
the
right now
answer
with
to
the
that-
subsidy?
The answer to that is, I assume, okay, because I'm not on the country
Sure.
club, I don't know, but that's part of the back and forth that led to the 2.75 million number,
Okay.
okay? Because they would certainly not accept anything less than that, and we wouldn't pay anything more than that. And so, when you ask what are they going to do with that, they say, well, we're going to use it for operating and capital, because they want to build a clubhouse. But the key to the economics of the country club, as I understand it, is they've got to get members who will pay monthly dues. Okay, it's not about the equity buy-in, which is one of the reasons I assume that they dropped it down to where it is now from where it was 10 years ago. But the real key is getting those monthly dues. And so that's why a big part of their focus is getting new members. And they've made from the time that before I got on board, I never talked to them. I never was over here. Since that time, in the year and a half we worked on this, when I first started talking to them, I think they probably had somewhere on the order of 110, 113, somewhere around there. Does that sound about right? And now I understand they've got more than 200. Okay, and that's what's really critical to them. What they really, I think their motivation, now I'm speaking for them without the right to do so, so this is my opinion. Let me make that clear. This is not official. I'm making an opinion right now. I think the reason they were willing to do this is that they are healthy enough to maintain their current operation, but what they really need to be a first-class country club is a clubhouse. That's a permanent clubhouse, nice facilities. That's how you're going to attract more equity members. That makes sense to me. Okay. And that's what they're looking at in terms of what they're doing. Let me ask you, do you have any?
Tony, on behalf of the golf course, we have an absolutely incredible management staff that is making cuts, being very, very careful with the budget, and it's run very effectively. The club is doing a fabulous job of bringing in new members, and that's an ongoing basis. I take exception to this. I think that your presentation and the literature that has gone out has been very straightforward. It's laid it out there, and the facts are out there. This to me is offensive. It's got an attitude. I don't think that everything in here is correct. And I think it's a shame that literature like this is out at a meeting this evening. And I would wish that people would get their facts straight before doing this.
We invite you to come tomorrow and you can ask any question you want and put the facts out. We're more than happy to have we've got a whole panel of people that
Okay,
can help you.
why does it keep saying 2.75 million?
Because that's what it says in the
The
contract.
contract says 2.75 million with credit. You were in the meeting when I explained that. The number now is 2.66, but 2.75.
Well, it's a moving
is
target.
shown out.
It's a moving target, still, it's a huge amount of money.
It's absolutely not 2.75 though. Why can't we use real facts?
Well, why don't you tell us what the real fact is then?
I did. There was a slide in there. Did you not see it? It's
Is it-
2.66 right now this month.
Okay, I
It's
still
going
say
down
it
$30,000.
doesn't matter, that's a huge amount of money to burden an entire community for the benefit of two
But
hundred
it's
people.
not.
Well, many.
It's not for the
It's
benefit.
not benefited.
Just, Tony, one of the things that's come up,
What do you think would happen if all that red went black?
I happen to know that it would have other purposes, but I know that the community would have a
What
better
other
option
purposes?
What do you
of
have in it now?
negotiating, let me finish, of negotiating a better deal if they allow the Attorney General's office to get to the point that they will get to in November, and you're all invited to go to that commission meeting on November 17th, where they will determine whether or not there was fraud, self-interest, and go against the former board. And that is in the state's hands, because that agreement that was set up prompted that action from the Attorney General's office.
How would that
And at
change
that
any of
point,
this?
there would have been a better opportunity to negotiate a better deal with the developer, who was the
Why?
former board president, and the golf course. I
Why?
guarantee you that would have had a better
Why would
time.
that be a better
how can you
opportunity?
guarantee that?
Because he would have been up against having to go to
He's
court
a
over
Democrat.
something that he
He's not up
did.
against anything. That's what
Oh,
we
yes,
need
he
to
is.
understand. He's a Democrat.
Okay. Think what
Tony,
you
one of
want.
the other things that's come up, and I'd like you to just make sure I understand it, is there's been a question of title on all of this. My understanding is if this deal goes through, there's a title company involved, there's title insurance involved, and there is absolutely no question that if the deal goes through, we will own the property.
Yeah, that is correct. There have been two questions related to title. One is the one you bring up, and absolutely, if you read the contract specifies title company. We will have title insurance, we have title searches, all that kind of stuff happens, okay? The second title issue that came up, it came up at the Aspen Lodge meeting, where it was alleged that the country club doesn't actually have title, or doesn't actually own this land, so they can't actually sell it to us. Go to the county assessor's website, look it up, you will see SCC Inc., Somerset Country Club Inc., as the owner of record on the state records. Okay, there's no question that they have. They have title, there is a reverter clause. The reverter clause acts like any other restriction. We all have an SAD restriction on our titles because of the special assessment district that paid for the roads and the sewers. That doesn't mean we don't own that land. It just means that whether we own the land or anybody else own the land, it's subject to that restriction. And that's what the situation is with the country club and the golf course.
Yeah, I have a question. This meeting tomorrow night that we're all invited to, are they gonna have ice cream and cake?
Who knows?
Tonight.
Did I see a hand up there? Okay.
Yeah. Was there any pursuit of the option of maybe just going to the developer and buying his reverter rights
Well, the question is,
without anything else?
yeah, I actually talked to him about that early on. It wasn't gonna go anywhere then. You know, remember this, all this stuff like one of the things I've seen is, oh yeah, that, you know, if the developer's willing to give the reverter right up for this deal, let's just not do this deal and go get it from the developer. Well, remember, if the developer wanted to, he could have given Somerset the reverter right to begin with. He could have put it in Somerset's name, just like he could have put the water facilities and the pond out here that's on our golf course that we don't own. He could have put that in our name, but he didn't. Okay, so why? I don't know. doing it now and whether he'd do it in the future.
Yeah, it's interesting that it doesn't seem like he's getting any value for his money, for the.
Well, that's because we refuse to pay for it. You know, that's the bottom line. The thing is, and this is one of the issues that comes up too a lot is, how come we haven't seen an appraisal? Okay, and I've addressed this a few times, but let me do that again, because that's an important one. We started out, and Danielle, who's on the board, who's the third member of the group that's been involved with this, she's talked to several appraisers. She was the one that took on, let's talk to appraisers, see what it is. We ended up not getting a land appraisal for a couple reasons. One is, what do you appraise it as? You appraise it as a golf course? We don't want it as a golf course. That's not the value that it has to us. Do you appraise it as developed land? Well, that may be the highest and best use, so that's probably what you want to appraise it at, but we don't want to develop the land either. And what we ask each of the appraisers is, would you appraise and give us a value for the reverter rate? Because to the association, that's the most important piece of that whole thing. It's how much is the, we're getting the reverter right so that we can make sure the land doesn't go back. Not a single one would appraise the reverter right. So what are we doing instead? Here's what we're doing. Okay. We actually decided then, let's come at it the other way. Let's appraise the water rights, because that you can do a straightforward appraisal. We've hired an appraiser, he's been working on it. I think we're expecting within a week or something like that, hopefully. That's what he said originally. So, in the next week or so, 2 weeks, hopefully we'll have an appraisal for just the water rights. Okay? We know from all the data points that we've looked at and talked to water experts and stuff. If you remember the early presentations, I used a swag of $6,000 per acre foot, because that was given to me by a water surveyor who said that's a reasonable mixed number. Because each permit, you got to appraise separately, because depending on how old it is and whether it's from the river, whether it's from the well, what restrictions it has on it, all those things make a difference. So we said, yeah, 6,000 is a good number. Now, more recently, we know that just recently, in the last few weeks, Lakeside Golf Course, is it Lakeside? Is that the one that's Lake Ridge? The one right there around McCarran, down on the front of McCarran. They just bought a bunch of water rights for themselves, $5,400 an acre foot. I understand about a week or so ago, somebody from Truckee Meadows Water Authority came in to Aspen Lodge to talk about conservation efforts or whatever. And in the course of that discussion, somehow I wasn't there, but I've been told the question came up about how much does water cost and stuff like that. But you can buy water rights from the Truckee Meadow Water Authority. And I understand they said $7,000 an acre foot. So that's the ballpark. We know that just because we know of recent transactions and stuff like that. So we'll get an actual number on that. If you look at that, say $6,000, somewhere in between there, 411 acre feet, you're talking $2.5 million right there. Okay. Now, we did have the reserve consultant come in and look at everything. Okay. Now, reserve consultants, they estimate costs for different reasons, for replacement cost reasons, not for construction or insurance or anything like that. But if you look at that report, the current replacement value of the facilities, including the pump houses and cart paths and pond down here, the pipeline, all that kind of stuff, is something like $638,000. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, on this, but that basically is the cost of the materials, not all the stuff that would actually cost you if you had to build it. Because, for example, our pipeline runs under both the freeway and the railroad tracks. The developer had to get an easement to tunnel under those. I mean, I know I've talked to a couple of engineers here in town and say you couldn't get that permit these days. But we've got that. There's a sleeve under there, so if you have to change that pipe, you can pull out the old one, hopefully push a new one through. So, I mean, my point is, the replacement cost is a lot less than market value would be if you were selling stuff.
Tony, wasn't there also an appraisal of North Cape?
Yes, I actually have that right here. I found this last week. I got a copy of the appraisal. And this was kind of interesting because this, I think, people say, well, how come you didn't get an appraisal? Okay. If you're talking about appraising land, I'm sure people here know this. If there's not an ongoing business involved, the way appraisers do their business is by comparables, right? They look at similar types of properties that have sold recently or whatever, and try to come up with adjustments, to make adjustments between this property and the ones that they found. But that's all it is. And if you look on the website, especially if you look in the frequently asked questions and in the presentations that were made earlier in the year after the letter of intent, you will see comparisons that include numbers for every golf course that's been sold here in the last several years. Okay? But this one is particularly, I think, relevant because it's right next door. You can't argue that the climate's different, the ground's different. I mean, it's right there. So ours, the land we're buying is 224 acres, like I said. Northgate was 228 acres. So we're talking same size. At the time, this was done in August of 2009, which means the market had not started recovering. It had recovered substantially in 2014 from where it was, a couple of years ago or so. But this was done in 2009, so take into account the real estate environment, the value and everything. The golf course had already gone brown. Okay? It says right here, the former greens fairways have all died, and weeds and other plant growth are beginning to encroach on the former golf course. Okay? It also says that all furniture, fixtures, and equipment have been removed from the property. So that means irrigation pumps. I assume they didn't dig up the stuff that was underground, but they took everything that was on the ground. Okay? And you know what, and this is critical, no water. There is no water associated with that land. Okay, you know what it's appraised for? $2.850 million. So now, if you look at it, if the water right appraisal comes in, say around $5,000, $6,000,
$2.4 million.
You're talking about $638,000 for the replacement cost, which is lower than the market cost. So do you think the land is worth nothing? Because that's what it comes out to. So we're getting the land for free.
So why would someone say that we didn't have an appraisal and it's little value?
Well,
That's,
I don't know.
that's a
I mean,
question.
I just, I don't mind having opposition on stuff like this. I think it's healthy. I just wish people would actually use the right information. Yeah, that's the other thing.
The names are at the bottom of two of the sheets. There's only one that's missing.
Right.
Well,
Since you're gonna be at that meeting, and most of us won't, will you relay all the facts that were presented here?
I don't think
Let's
that,
speak against,
I don't think that we're going to be in disagreement of the existing facts. I think it's an interpretation of when the agreement should have been made, who's benefiting from it, and there's going to be a couple-hour discussion. So you're welcome to come if you're interested. If you're not, don't come.
Well, see, here's the kind of stuff that I object to. If the SGCC fails, your dues could go up $50 to $70 a month as reported by your board president. I've explained that. Then, do you choose to spend your money? What else have I said about who should make that decision? Yes, I'm saying you should make the decision. The homeowner should make the decision. I don't see that in here anywhere. Okay, so, it'd be nice if people would stick with that.
Tony, you're welcome to come to that meeting.
Oh, I will be there.
And I would love to have you be
I'll
there.
be there.
Tony, not a content process here. How many votes are needed to make this ballot? What is 50 plus 1 now? You know,
If I had it's written on the ballot.
25.
You said there's 2,577 properties now?
77.
you said homes. Is that homes plus lots or is that?
Yeah, no, but it's everybody who is, once a property is sold once, whether it's sold to a builder or an individual, let me put it this way, take that off. What I was about to say is not exactly accurate. What is accurate is, if the property is paying an assessment, it has a vote. And there are builders that have lots that they pay assessments on, there are builders that have lots that they don't pay assessments.
But the figure you
The
get
25,
calculate lots.
Yeah, what we call the 2577, which is what I asked Lauren earlier today, that's the number she gave me. That's what we call active lots, which means they've been activated to pay assessments. So they're officially a lot. So you gotta have a majority of that number,
So roughly 1,285.
whatever it is. I mean, the way to do it is take the number, calculate, because there's an issue of rounding, which makes a difference by one number or another. So the way to do it is take 51%, round it to the fifth, and then subtract it from the 2577. And if it's only off by one vote, it's the correct number. If it's off by 2 votes, it's one number down from that. Because you only need one more vote than the other side had, whichever side gives it. So,
Are all the Somerset Owners Association board members in agreement with this, or is there the board itself? How do they say?
from what they've told me, I mean, let me explain how that has worked. When the first homeowner board took place, it took its place, and we had 5 members then. 2 of the members were actually equity members of the country club, so they couldn't be involved with this. It turns out there were only 2 members. One member, Ray, was a social member of the country club, and then Danielle and I were not members. So the board authorized Danielle and I to do the negotiations. Okay, we pulled Ray in because of his financial expertise as our treasurer. Okay, but technically Danielle and I were the ones that had the authority to make decisions about that. Having done this deal, we brought it back to the full board. So the other members, and then the board changed a member too, but basically Ray, Danielle, and I were the ones involved in actually negotiating the thing. And then we brought it back to the full board and said, here's the best deal we can get. Okay? From what the board members told, they all supported it. But as a board, our role was to vote whether or not to accept it and put it to a homeowner vote, which they did. So that's, yeah. So the answer is yeah. As far as I know, every board member supports it and thinks it's a good idea.
Well, one of the reasons I asked, and it could be just the way I interpret it, is when this woman here, this literature was in orange, it says, by John Kerwin, it says Somerset Owners Association member. My immediate interpretation was that it was a board member.
No. Member means an owner. So, and we're all members of the association. Right. Right.
And I'm curious, it may not be relevant, but I'm curious. Did we initiate the process, or did the country club come to us to ask us this, or I guess?
Yes and no. Let me explain that. It was complicated. That's why it took so long. This was complicated. Initially, actually, I think the first call was received from the country club to us, but it wasn't on this topic. It was on the fact that the existing agreement said that in 2014 they were supposed to build some more amenities. They were supposed to build an 18-hole putting. Okay. And they basically called up and said, do you guys really want an 18-hole putting thing? And so that's what started. So that call came from them. What happened is we started talking about that. We felt that it might be better to get a more variety of things. We actually invited the homeowner members of the Sierra Canyon Board to come in on these discussions. They did. And what we were kind of negotiating around was what to put in for that next amendment. During the course of those discussions, it became clear to us, Danielle and I, this was before Ray was involved in some of the stuff, it became clear to us that there might be an opportunity for a better, longer-term deal that wasn't about, okay, now we can have a putting course or, a pickleball court or something like that, which at the end of the contract, we walk away with after paying money with absolutely nothing left for the association. We sensed that that opportunity might be there. Danielle and I opened the door to ask them, can we negotiate something that's longer term, more permanent? So we are the ones that negotiated, that opened the door to start, we asked about starting negotiations, which led to this deal. So that's why it's a yes and no.
And I realize you may not be able to answer this question, but why is Blake Smith interested in I guess, proceeding forward and relinquishing his control?
I don't know. I mean, one of the things when I was in my business life one of the lessons that I was taught early on was when you've made the sale, shut up. You know, stop talking. If the client says yes, stop talking. So I don't know. I've never sat down with him to say, why are you doing this? Okay, I've sat with him to say, here's what we want. We're not going to do this deal unless you throw this in. And we made that clear to the country club too. At the very beginning, when we started talking long term, we made it real clear. If the reverter rights aren't part of this, we're not interested. Okay, there's no sense putting more money into, you know, a bad contract and we get nothing out of it in the end. And so, I don't know why he made that decision. I can tell you my guess. This is my personal opinion. It's not official or anything else. He designed this place with a country club in the middle of it. I assume that's what he would like to see happen. And so maybe he's thinking this is the best chance for the country club to succeed and Somerset to be what he wants it to be. Because, you know, again, like I said earlier, if he didn't have to put the reverter right on the property at all, and he certainly could have done it to give the reverter right to the association to begin with, so that if anything happened to the country club, it automatically comes to the association. But he chose not to do either of those things. So, you know, I don't know. But the fact is, we got it, and I suspect that if we weren't doing a 3-year deal with the country club, he would not have put it on the table. I suspect that. I don't know his reasons.
He had a vision of a successful country.
That's my guess. That's what he wants to see.
Yeah, Tony, I have to agree with you. This is his legacy, and it's, in my opinion, the opposite of what very few people think about Blake Smith. You know, he has the best interest of this community in mind in what he does.
Well, I mean, I've dealt with various developers, and on the scale of developers, you know, I mean, all developers are in it for a profit. All of them are trying to make money. But on the scale of developers, I find him to be toward the better end rather than the worst end. However, I will say that from what I've gotten to know him a little bit. We're not friends. I've never been to dinner with him. I've never invited him to my house. I don't think I ever will, and I don't think he ever will. But I've dealt with him now a number of times in the course of these discussions. And if I understand correctly, it was interesting, I was on the transition committee for the first homeowner board before the developer left, and one of the jobs that Rob Morrison and I did was go through all the as-built drawings, and literally we were going through rooms of blueprints and trying to sort out what belongs to Somerset, and I found a bunch of other projects that were his projects. I think this is the only residential planned community he has ever done, and I would bet you it is the last one he ever does too. But, yeah, so I don't know what his motivations are. I take them at face value.
Along the line of the developer, I think there's been a consistent misconception in the group that opposes pretty much everything the board does.
That isn't true.
Constantly on
That's not
the
true.
identity of who they're suing and who is who they're going to benefit from if, for instance, the lawsuit in November gets a hearing. The country club that exists right now, Somerset Golf and Country Club LLC, the most recent legal consensus has no relationship to that lawsuit.
Absolutely not.
So
They are not named it.
the price of that course in November, your opportunity to make a much better deal in November
Yeah.
has no effect.
Yeah, the country club is not a party to this complaint.
There's 3 parties in this agreement.
No, but the country club is not a
That's
party.
that's not what they're saying.
That's
They're
not what
saying that the decision in November has nothing to do with the country club.
The
That's
country
correct.
club is not part of it.
That's all he's saying, so you agree.
But Blake Smith has control over those reverter rights, and that's what we're talking about.
Right. But that has nothing to do with the price. To argue that
Look at those reverter rights. We have Blake Smith no longer in life.
Tony
Southworth.
Yeah.
I mean, no longer in your life.
How many, let me ask you another question.
That's some other people.
So we are spending X amount of money to get rights on 240 some acres of land. Why, instead of doing that, has anyone ever thought about spending the same amount or less amount of money and building something else that could add value to the house? Because the biggest concern right now is values to our houses, homeowners, if this goes black. So if we just buy the land which is right here, which is the big chunk, and make this as a bigger clubhouse with indoor pool and everything, that would add more value to the
Well, right
homeowners
now,
rather than.
actually, this is not an either or, okay? Because the board's doing a lot of things with regard to, amenities and future planning for the community. This is one initiative. I know that people try to position it as it's that and nothing else. Okay, right now, the only piece of land that's for sale is the one the dirt lot that's between the two buildings at the back. That's the only one that's available. We've been talking to the owner of that lot for the last couple of months, and we're proceeding in a process. We're right now at the point where we've not made an offer, but we have, this was all discussed at the last board meeting, we have engaged an appraiser because the board decided they'd rather get the appraisal first in this case than get tied up in a contract that, so we're waiting for the appraisal right now. I mean, I talked to him Monday, I think it was the last time I talked to him. Ray's talked to him a couple times.
Is it usual for homeowner associations to be landowners?
No.
Well, yes. No, it absolutely is. Common area. We own. How big is Somerset? How many acres is in Somerset? It's common area. I mean, a couple thousand or more.
I want to say around 2,000.
Yeah, I mean, we own this building.
Right.
We're paying on it.
No, I mean, look,
Yeah, but
landowners
no, common area, yes.
as a dealer, that
Right.
if we get that, we can sell that land and
Well, see, and that's
have someone to build houses there. We don't want to be, as a board, tied into that kind of
we
deal.
don't do development stuff. The only thing we've ever done that I know of with residential lots is we had down in Review, there was a series of lots where the builder basically went out of business. He owed us a bunch of assessments. We foreclosed on those lots and we turned around and sold them. But no, we do own a lot of land. We own all the common area. And so questions like, why don't we use the $2.75 million to build a pool? And then the question of, well, okay, where are you going to build it? Okay, right now, the only land that's available for sale that I know of is that one lot, and we're trying to buy it. Whether we'll be able to buy it or not, if we can come up with a price is going to depend on the appraisal and a bunch of other stuff. I saw some stuff that it was alleged we had our priorities all wrong because the survey that the Strategic Planning and Communications groups did in early last year, showed that aquatics and exercise were the top priorities and stuff like that. Okay, trails was up there at some point. Okay, this isn't an either or. After that survey was done, we added a lot of new equipment to the exercise room. Okay, there are special projects that the Strategic Planning Committee has asked to be included in the 2015 budget. We've done some preliminary work, both for expanding this pool, possibly building a different pool, as well as other options to expand exercise facilities, because that's very heavy. So all that stuff's going forward. This is not we do this deal and nothing else happens, or that everybody's kind of sitting around only focused on one thing. There's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's what it says. That, well, yeah, we listened. We did pay the priorities. We've done the exercise equipment. We're putting money in the budget to do some. We're looking at both expansion of this pool. We're looking at there are several options that the Strategic Planning Committee came up with, and they did the research and showed pictures and all kinds of stuff where we could put various types of temporary covers on the lap pool so it can be used year-round. Obviously, if we can buy land in here, there's potentially an option for building a whole indoor pool or building another exercise room or stuff like that.
Tony, one of the other things that the board has approved is we've hired consultants to give us
Yes.
a long-range plan so we don't do something today that isn't going to be right tomorrow.
See, that was something that the homeowner board started. We started a strategic planning committee. We also, there's been stuff about how we're not transparent. We're trying to hide stuff, which is kind of funny coming from people who won't say anything about who's in their organization or whether they even live in Somerset.
That's not true.
you know, we've added homeowners to the finance committee. We've set up a strategic planning committee, and it's all, you know, homeowners, there's a board liaison. We've beefed up the communications committee, you know, and our problem is we can't get enough volunteers. We could, you know, there's a lot more things we could involve homeowners in, except we can't get the volunteers. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's not, you do this deal and nothing else happens.
As a homeowner, I should thank you for all your time and energy and
Well,
doing
thank you.
everything.